Okay, this is the review for exam 1. Just going to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes talking about ways for you to best prepare for the exam and give you a little bit of information about how it's structured, what's going to be on it, and so forth. The exam has 55 multiple guess questions, multiple choice. From Think, we're looking at chapters 1 and 2 only. From The Dark Side of Fat Loss, it's going to include material from the introduction, chapter 1, chapter 3, and chapter 8. Yeah, chapter 2 is not on there. I think that's the it's all about hormones chapter. That's going to come a little bit later. So I did not include any material from The Dark Side of Fat Loss from chapters 4 and 5. That's the Just Eat Real Food, and I think the Do Something chapters. So again, from Dark Side of Fat Loss, introductory, chapter 1, chapter 3, and chapter 8, which is that digestion, heal your gut chapter. In terms of the distribution of questions, and this is pretty important, I think, to help you focus your studying energy, from Think Chapter 1, there's only about 5 questions, and that's in line with that first lecture. It's such general information, there's not much depth there, so there is sort of general stuff, know what a calorie is, some of those big picture kind of things. I couldn't get deep enough with those questions, so only expect 5 questions from that first lecture, and really that first chapter in Think. From the digestion talk, and then this is the chapter 2 in Think, there's about 20 questions. So over a third of your exam is coming from digestion specifically. So really know your lecture, so those slides, and know Think. And I think, the lecture, and this is sort of universal throughout, the lecture notes from the PowerPoint is going to be your best way to prepare, at least for starting off your studying, and then really use your readings to supplement issues that you didn't understand from the lecture. And I will be kind of mean and add some questions from the readings that were never covered in the lecture. But I would say 80%, maybe more, of the questions will come from lecture material. There will be a few that are not, so I just it's trying to keep you honest and separate the highest grades from the not so highest grades. So from digestion, and this is something in the past I've had for you guys to an assignment where you would literally track the process of eating some food from start to finish, and that was sort of my assessment of your understanding of digestion, and I've I've taken that out, and so now I'm trying to assess it through this exam, and I think the questions are fair. They're detailed though. So know from mouth all the way to anus, know those organs, know what their secretions might be, know what happens to carbohydrates, fats, proteins within each of them. I ask about a couple of enzymes, the absorptive mechanisms between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, facilitated diffusion, active transport, know the difference between those and which nutrients experience which one of those things. Know your accessory organs, the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder, know what their role is. Yeah, lots of, be sure to watch the supplementary video from The Dark Side of Fat Loss, the Poopin' 2.0, I think it's called. There may be a question on that. Yeah, no probiotics. There's probably 3 to 5 questions on probiotics, and this is all also overlap with from the Think and also from the Dark Side of Fat Loss chapter 8. So so know your probiotics, know about things like leaky gut. Yeah, so that's by far your greatest amount of energy in preparing for the exam should be on the digestion chapters, both Think, Dark Side of Fat Loss, and also from the lecture. The metabolism discussion, there's about 8 questions or so coming from metabolism, and I know most of you, or if not all of you, are kinesiology majors, and most of you have probably already had your physiology and maybe even exercise physiology classes. As I said in the lecture, if you listened, this is not, this class is not intended to inform you completely about metabolism. So it's almost to a certain extent an introduction or just a review. So I don't get that deep with the metabolism questions. I don't, know those main energy systems, know a little bit about the phosphagen system, about, glycolysis, know about the Krebs cycle, know about how different macronutrients, what process of metabolism they go through, know that, fats can't go through the process of glycolysis. That just can't happen, right? So know that type of workings, or have that type of understanding with metabolism and how it relates to the food that we eat. And also just know their general function, which provides ATP the fastest, which has the greatest potential to produce ATP in terms of overall amount of ATP. So know the differences between them in that way as well. Finally, the dark side of fat loss questions. There's about 15 of them to finish off the quiz, and I didn't shuffle the order in which the questions were presented, so that should be the last 15 questions or so are specific dark side of fat loss questions. There's the PowerPoints available for the dark side of fat loss to you on Blackboard. Look over those, because I do use those as my starting point to come up with questions. I have the book open as well when I write questions, but I start with those PowerPoints, because those PowerPoints do sort of highlight the main ideas and the main themes of those chapters. And the dark side's a little bit hard to write specific questions about, because it covers a lot of material, but it's not your traditional textbook. So start at the very least, if I hope you've read the dark side, read it again. It's always worth reading more than once, but use those PowerPoints as a study tool, and those are available on Blackboard. I think that's pretty much it. I've given you 65 minutes to take the 55 questions. I think, on the research I've done on online exam giving, that's a little bit generous on time. So please, just don't take advantage of that. The test will be available for 2 days, so kind of like the quizzes now. I think it's going to be available from a Thursday at 9 a.m. to a Saturday at 9 a.m. Please, and I shouldn't be talking about this here, but make sure you have a secure connection and one that's not going to drop you during the exam, because that just creates a whole bunch of messes for everybody. So please use a good computer with a good connection. Obviously, a wired connection is better than wireless, all that good stuff. So the additional readings, don't want to forget about those. I did write at least a couple of questions from the Gut Flora and Health article. So there was 2 probiotic related articles as part of the lecture 2 with the digestion. There was the Gut Flora and Health article is the one that I picked questions from. So I know there's 2. There are other ones, I think probiotics and health or something like that. It's the Gut Flora and Health, where you should just read over it. It's I think the shorter of the 2. It's a little bit more applied between the 2, so make sure you read that one. There aren't any questions from any other additional readings, and there weren't actually any other additional readings. Remember that the exam is only on the first 3 lectures, and I know we've been quizzed on the first 4 lectures, but the exam only covers those first 3. So in a bit, you're already ahead of what you're being tested on if you've gotten to the 4th lecture. I think that's it. As always, feel free to email me before the exam if you have any questions. I'll do my best to address them. I might address it to the entire class, because oftentimes those questions are useful for everyone. Happy studying and good luck.